The Chargers and Rams hope their day 3 picks can rise above special teams. Do you like scapegoating? Well, have I got a choice for your LA Kings? And UCLA and USC pad their basketball rosters. Good morning. I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos morning report. So, it is April 28th, 2024, still stuck in St. Loser misery for at least another 24 hours. Sucks for me. Move on with life. And besides, it's Sunday, it's the Lord's Day, and we still want to give thanks to the blessings in our life, for the blessings in our life, like LA sports. And if you like being in the know about LA, click-clack the like button. Click-clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. Now, before we go through the news and notes, a look at the scoreboard. The Lakers keep their season alive and snapped an 11-game losing streak to Denver with a 119-108 victory yesterday. Denver still leads the best-of-7 playoff series 3-1. The series also shifts back to Colorado for Game 5 on Monday. LeBron James scored 30 points. 4 Lakers scored at least 20, and that would include D'Angelo Russell, who had a goose egg in Game 3. Meanwhile, the Dodgers have won 6 games in a row. They defeated Toronto 4-2 yesterday. Tyler Glasnow improves to 5-1. Mookie Betts scored a run, drove in a run. The Galaxy face-planted in Austin, Texas. They lost 2-0. The first time the Galaxy have been shut out this year. Even worse, Ricky Puig will be missing next week's match up in Seattle. He's simply accumulated too many yellow cards. He's being suspended. Pardon me. And Dennis Bouanga scored a game winner in second half stoppage time. LAFC edged Portland 3-2. Meanwhile, today, the Clippers are at Dallas at 12:30. Dallas leads the best-of-7 series 2-1. And of course, the question of Game 4, will Kawhi Leonard play? Stay tuned. The Dodgers are at Toronto at 10:30 a.m. Ryan Yarbrough is 2-1 with a 3.52 ERA. Kevin Gausman 0-3 with a 5.57 ERA. And Edmonton is in town to play the Kings at 7:30. I made a mistake yesterday. I said Edmonton had a 3-1 series advantage. That's not true. It's 2-1. They simply have home ice back. What do you say we get to the news? Yesterday, I heaped oodles of praise on the Chargers for landing potential starters with their top 3 picks. But I have to be frank with you. I have a belief that pretty much every day 3 pick in the NFL draft, rounds 4 through 7, you're increasingly taking flyers. Okay? ESPN loves to claim, oh my God, you can find Tom Brady in round 7 just like the Patriots did. No, you can't. Stop it. Stop it. I mean, the Chargers were extraordinarily lucky as it is to have hit on Antonio Gates in the 7th round a decade or so ago. Those picks are extremely unlikely to hit. So for all the picks that I'm going to talk about from day 3, take it with a grain of salt, okay? Take it with a grain of salt. They're not going to be all difference makers. But for the Chargers, if anyone could be impactful on day 3, consider 6th round pick Kamani Vidal of Troy. He's not a flashy guy, but he thrives by running between the tackles, which is exactly what Jim Harbaugh wants out of his running game. And by the way, the reason I think he can make an impact, it's not because he's flashy, but the new Chargers running back room is kind of old and busted. So if you want to get an idea of what Vidal runs like, he'll remind you, if you watch Michigan football when Harbaugh was coaching there, he will remind you a little bit of Blake Corum, who was drafted by the Rams. The other thing to mention from day 3 of the Chargers draft is there's a Feel Precious story in the 7th round. They took USC wide receiver Brendan Rice. And so everybody in the press went nuts. Oh, look, the son of a Hall of Famer got drafted, and the Chargers need wide receivers, and he played for USC. Win, win, win. Not necessarily true. And I like USC football. I like Brendan Rice. But there is a reason he was drafted in the 7th round, guys. And the reason is he doesn't have many moves to make off the line of scrimmage to try to get separation from his defender. If he has issues creating space, why would a quarterback throw to him? And therein lies the rub. So we mentioned those 2 players out of the picks from yesterday that the Chargers got a lot of attention for. There was a 4th round defensive tackle out of Alabama, Justin Ibo Igbe, big frame, not likely to be much of a pass rusher, but he could theoretically help them stop the run, which has been a Chargers problem for years. Then you're also looking at cornerback Cam Hart of Notre Dame. Tall guy, but problem with him, though, is he gets flagged for a lot of penalties because he gets beaten on the route. Same you could say for Tarheeb Still, who was drafted out of Maryland, another guy who gets called for a lot of penalties. Both of those guys were taken in the 5th round. Now, the Chargers have 6 running backs. And by the way, in the 7th round, they took another wide receiver, Cornelius Johnson of Michigan, to which no disrespect meant to those guys. Maybe they make the team, maybe they don't. But take a step back. Overall, this was an extremely sensible draft for the Chargers. I still argue that they should have traded down in round 1, get maybe another pick, maybe get themselves a better grade of wide receiver, and still get themselves a decent offensive lineman in the 1st round. But look, you can't look at 1st round pick tackle Joe Alt and say that's a terrible idea. Because it's not a terrible idea. Again, 3 potential starters, immediate starters, with the first 3 picks. And the others, because they were chosen at positions of need, are going to get a legit shot at a job. Rice will probably reach the Bolts roster because they're extremely thin at receiver. But if a couple of those day 3 picks actually do hit for the Bolts, the results go from a damn good draft to a holy bleep level draft. Meanwhile, for the Rams, they didn't even have a pick in the 4th round. If you're looking for somebody who you can be extremely confident can make the roster, they probably solved their kicking problem in the 6th round. They drafted Stanford's Joshua Carty. Now, if you watched Rams football last year, you knew the kicking game was atrocious. Rams kickers, and they had many of them trying out, ranked 30th in the league in field goal percentage. This guy was known for power and accuracy over at Stanford. So hopefully this is a problem that's been solved. Meanwhile, once again, we're talking about teams taking flyers, though, on day 3. So they take edge rusher Brennan Jackson of Washington State in the 5th round. The dude had 8.5 sacks, but he's kind of limited, inconsistent with the motor. So again, this is a flyer. Same for Tyler Davis, a defensive tackle from Clemson, taking in the 6th round. They took him because he's apparently very adept at stuffing the run. So what we're looking at with these later rounds are people who excel at one thing, not multiple things. Both of them, by the way, Jackson and Davis, are described as strong as bleep. Also in the 6th, the Rams took Texas wide receiver Jordan Whittington, reasonable pick. Arkansas's Bo Limmer. I've heard some people describe him as a future starting center, to which I would say, you know that the Rams are set in the interior offensive line long term, right? Just saying. He's going to have a long wait if there is a chance to snap the ball. And then they grabbed an offensive tackle in the 7th round, KV Livingston of Kansas State. Now, overall for the Rams draft, could it be any clearer that the entire focus of the Rams draft was about trying to fill that abyss left by the retirement of Aaron Donald? Right? Could you possibly say it was any other purpose of that draft? 4 of the Rams' picks, including their first 2 choices, went for defensive line. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I do think the kicker is a great idea. And I also think they drafted a backup running back to Kyron Williams on day 2. Again, solid idea. But this draft is a window that shows us just how desperate, just how important filling the shoes of Aaron Donald is to the Rams in next season. As for LA's colleges, there was a bit of a wait on day 3 for a USC player to be called on. Having said that, we mentioned Brendan Rice going to the Chargers. Offensive lineman Jarrett Kingston was taken by San Francisco in the 6th round. His thing is versatility. That's how he might wind up getting a spot, because he could fill in for the Niners wherever there's a need on their offensive line. He's probably not going to start, but if they need a guard, throw him there. They need a tackle, throw him there. Defensive lineman Solomon Byrd was grabbed in the 7th round by Houston. He allegedly fell from a higher round because his combine numbers were bad. Wide receiver Taj Washington was drafted by Miami. He's probably going to special teams unless, say, Jalen Waddle gets hurt. So overall, this year, despite the fact that it was a down year for the Trojans on the field, 7 Trojans selected in the NFL draft. That is the most taken from that program in a year since 2011. So Lincoln Riley didn't get you the wins and losses, but if you're a player and you want to get to the NFL, you might want to listen to up when USC calls. Meanwhile, over at UCLA, linebacker Darius Muasau was selected by the New York Giants in the 6th round. And that was it for the Bruins. Neither of the Murphy twins were drafted, for example. And by the way, Muasau is likely going to be a special teamer. Now, the Murphy twins did get signed after the draft, the undrafted free agent thing. Gabriel Murphy was raved about in some national publications, claiming that he was the best undrafted player available. He simply didn't have the size that scouts loved. So Gabriel Murphy signs with Minnesota, and his twin brother Grayson signs with Miami. Do you love scapegoating? Do you love finding a rando to blame for all of life's problems? Don't we all? I don't try to scapegoat after my team loses one game, which is why I'm not freaking out over the Galaxy getting shut out yesterday. But if you are looking for a scapegoat, it helps to look for people who have given you a trend of bad news. A trend that's even worse than, say, combining an Ed Hardy shirt with Crocs and hammer pants. I don't know. Consider the Kings' 3rd line when you're looking for scapegoats. Jim Hiller, the interim coach, paired uber slouch Pierre-Luc Dubois with Kevin Fiala and a variety of other people as the 3rd wing. And Dubois' suckage has metastasized, particularly in the playoffs. 3 games so far, only 2 goals on the 3rd line. That's it. Now here's why it matters. Edmonton obviously has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. 2 incredible talents, no question about it. LA built their team hoping that the top 2 lines that they had would hang with those 2 players enough. Not stop them, just kind of neutralize them a little bit. And then the idea was this 3rd line would come on when Edmonton's talent would drop precipitously and that 3rd line would dominate. Did not happen, obviously. I mean, seriously, the Oilers' 3rd line is a malcontent in Evander Kane, Corey Perry, who's at least twice my age, and Ryan McLeod. Now, the Kings believe so heavily in their 3rd line, Fiala and Dubois, they are paying those 2 alone $123 million in salary for 2 goals in the playoffs so far. Even worse, should the Kings lose tonight and eventually lose the series in, say, 5 games, which is a possibility, doesn't that suggest that for all the work Rob Blake put in, that the talent gap between the Kings and the Oilers is actually getting wider, not narrowing? If you think about it, a couple of years ago, the Kings pushed the Oilers to 7 games. Last year it was 6. If it's 5 games this time, that's a problem. And Rob Blake is actually going to have to answer questions about that, because that's not money well spent at all. Guard Dominic Harris is transferring to UCLA basketball. It's going to be his 3rd college team. He originally went to Gonzaga, transferred to Loyola Marymount. The Bruins, by the way, have added 6 transfers to their roster. If Coach Mick Cronin deserved heat for last year's roster, which, by the way, he did, he absolutely deserves credit for recognizing what went wrong and changing it, which he did. Now, regarding Harris, the transfer might actually lead to some pretty stiff competition at guard. If you remember, a couple of weeks ago, they acquired Sky Clark. Both of these guys could play the point. Meanwhile, over at USC, Eric Musselman, to his credit, is not just thinking about piecing together a quick roster. He is thinking long-term. The Trojans landed their first top 100 recruit out of high school with small forward Jalen Shelley. He lives in Missouri. He's the 2nd high school player in the class of 2024 to commit to USC since all that turmoil was caused by Andy Enfield's departure. Shelley is a lefty who prefers playing in transition. USC has 10 scholarship players on the roster now. They have 3 scholarships left to offer. And the transfer window, by the way, for both schools closes on Tuesday. The Dodgers have picked up the contract for right-handed pitcher Nabil Crismot from AAA. They haven't been in Albuquerque for years. AAA Oklahoma City. Nick Ramirez was sent back to Oklahoma City as a result. Kyle Hurt was also transferred from the 15-day injured list to the 60-day injured list. By the way, how much churn is there in the Dodgers pitching staff? Season's barely a month old. This is Crismot's 2nd appearance in the major leagues. But you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Now that the NFL draft is over, where do you see the Chargers and the Rams? Do you think that USC could use "we can get you in the NFL" as a sales pitch as they try to build their program up in the Big Ten? And if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're talking LA sports every single day now. Thanks for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Corte El Queso production. Take care.